Today is a wonderful day. It's a day that I've been waiting for a very long time, only I didn't know I was waiting for it. Of course, really, I've been waiting for this day for about 4 months, but that doesn't sound as dramatic. Of course, I'm talking about today being the release date for Xenoblade Chronicles 3. I can't pretend that I've been a fan of the Xeno series for very long, but I also can't lie and say that this series hasn't impacted me in some very important and emotional ways. And so today, I'm going to talk about the Xenoblade series and how I got into it. My name is Emberus, and be sure to like and subscribe. I'll be making a ton of Xenoblade free content over the next few months, and I wouldn't want you to miss it. My Xenoblade story started on November 9th, 2017. I had bought my Switch earlier in the summer and was playing 3 games: Fire Emblem Warriors, Mario & Rabbids Kingdom Battle, and Breath of the Wild. I had put countless hours into Breath of the Wild, and at this point was waiting for the Champions Ballad DLC pack to drop later that month. When I booted up my Switch that morning and saw that Breath of the Wild had an update, I was ecstatic. I was less ecstatic to find that the story DLC hadn't dropped yet, and instead it was just an extra quest to complete from something called Xenoblade Chronicles 2? Well, disappointed as I was always looking for excuses to go back and explore Hyrule. So I sat down and did the quest. It was a lot of fun, as the game gave you hints about these locations where you could find the armor set, instead of telling you directly where they were. I finished the quest and put on the armor, and now Link was wearing scuba gear. I was a bit puzzled, if not intrigued. What I didn't realize was that this was my first exposure to the Xenoblade series, which looking back I guess was the whole reason for the crossover in the first place. So I learned about Xenoblade Chronicles 2 about a month before it came out. Surely I decided to play it, right? Nope, I didn't get to it. In fact, I didn't even think about that game for another 8 or 9 months. I really don't consider myself an RPG guy, and the little facts that Nintendo tried sharing about the game's combat and story might actually have turned me off of it. But in August of 2018, I was going to buy a Switch of my own, as at the time I was sharing a Switch with my little brother. I was heading up to college later that month, and so I swung over to GameStop. This was back in the olden days when you could actually walk into a store and get a Switch, instead of refreshing Amazon for 3 hours. I was just planning on buying a Switch and a screen protector, as I already had accrued quite a large library of games. But the guy at the counter asked what game I wanted with my Switch, and for some reason I asked for Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Again, I'd probably not thought about that game in months, but for some reason it popped into my head to buy it that day, and so I bought it. That weekend I was at a family reunion at a cabin by a lake. During a quiet moment one night, I sat down, booted up Xenoblade Chronicles 2, and played through the first chapter, up until you meet Pyra and start your journey to Elysium. And I loved it. I loved the over-the-top voice acting, the visuals, how vibrant everything looked, how the story immediately sucked you in with its main hook at the end of the chapter. It was an amazing experience. And then I took my time with the game. I really don't think I've ever spent as much time with an RPG as I did with my first playthrough of Xenoblade Chronicles 2. I don't remember for certain, but I think that it took me through the rest of the year to beat it. And what an experience it was. The characters, the music, the story, and that ending. My word, that ending. It was such a beautiful experience. And then the Torno DLC pack had released by then, and after playing it, I came to realize that that is an equally, if not better experience. I'll be making videos that go much more in depth about each of those games, but suffice it to say that I loved my time with Xenoblade Chronicles 2 and Torna. They were some of the best video games I have ever played. And that's all it was for me for about 3 years. A great gaming experience. I didn't know about Square and Xenogears in the 90s, I didn't know about Monolith Soft and Xenosaga in the 2000s, and I didn't know about Operation Rainfall and the community effort to localize Xenoblade Chronicles 1 in the early 2010s. I did know about Xenoblade Chronicles 1, but only because of Shulk Smash Bros. But then in the fall of 2019, a Nintendo Direct announced a full remake of the original Xenoblade Chronicles, releasing the spring of 2020. However, I would be unable to play the game until late 2021 at the earliest. Basically, I would be serving a mission for my church and would be unable to play video games for the duration of those 2 years. But I could still talk with my family, and so I asked my little brother how he liked Xenoblade Chronicles 1. He said that he enjoyed it, but that he still liked 2 better. I said, cool, and waited for when I would finally be able to play it. When I got home and was able to play video games again, I didn't start Xenoblade 1 right away. For whatever reason, I got caught up playing some other games that had come out the last couple of years. Hades, Ender Lilies, I played through a little bit of Chrono Trigger. Then the February Direct happened, and they announced Xenoblade Chronicles 3, and I was elated. I still hadn't played 1 yet, and every video that I watched told me I needed to play both Xenoblade 1 and 2 to be able to understand the story and why anything was happening in 3. But 3 was releasing in September, so I figured that I would play 1 for the first time and replay 2 over the summer when I had more time. But then the release date trailer for Xenoblade Chronicles 3 in April showed that they had moved the release date ahead at least a month, to July 29th, a week after my semester would end. I had about 4 months to beat 2 giant story-based RPGs, but by golly, I did it. I started with Xenoblade Chronicles 1 almost the day after the trailer dropped, borrowing the copy that my brother had bought almost 2 years earlier. And much like 2, I loved it. I loved the hook the game gives you that's so similar to the beginning of 2. I loved most of the characters that I met, of the world that I was slowly exploring, seeing how different each locale on each Titan could get. I loved the story and the way it managed to subvert all of my expectations and leave my jaw hanging on the floor, even when I still had about 5 hours left of the game to beat. I loved the connections that 2 of the game shows you at the very end. I finished, and I was almost in tears. The story of Xenoblade Chronicles 1 is a story that will stick with me for a very long time, and that video will also come in the future. The next week I played through Future Connected, a little side story that was packaged in with Xenoblade Chronicles 1 Definitive Edition. And then I replayed Xenoblade Chronicles 2 and Torna and fell in love with those games all over again. Xenoblade Chronicles 1 and 2 are both incredible, amazing games that you should definitely give a chance. I will say, even though I love these games, and I do consider these games in my top 5 favorite video game series of all times, I do have a few gripes with them. The combat of Xenoblade 1 is pretty bad, and even though I love the combat of 2, it starts out really slow, and the tutorials don't explain anything to you very well. Some of the characters in Xenoblade Chronicles 2 are a little crazy and over the top, like Tora, and the character designs of especially Pyra and Mithra can get a little ridiculous. But I'd say the overall story, the minute-to-minute gameplay, and the little character interactions are what really make these games so amazing for me. And so that leaves us here on the day of a new Xenoblade game. Since the announcement of Xenoblade Chronicles 3, I have devoured every bit of information about the Xeno games that I could find. Massive shoutouts to the YouTube channels of Enel and especially Luxon, as they really helped me understand a lot of the lore and the deeper themes of these games. This has truly become one of my favorite video game series of all time, and I'm extremely grateful that there is at least one more game coming out for me to enjoy. And that wraps it up for this retrospective. I hope you enjoyed it. If you can't tell, I'm super excited to be able to play this game so soon. I will be streaming my entire playthrough of Xenoblade Chronicles 3 on my Twitch channel, so make sure you follow me there if you want to see that, link in the description. And I'll be making a ton of content over here on YouTube as well, so be sure to subscribe so you can see that too. Like I said, this series is very important to me, and I can't wait to share it with you. Whether you're a Xenoblade veteran or just getting your feet wet, hopefully I can show you what the series is all about. Thank you, and remember to be a first-rate you.